My name is Dustin Black. As a part of Clemson Sports Media, we're going to be doing a film breakdown series of Clemson's opponents in the 23 season. Today, we're focusing on Duke and their defense. All right, so I thought this was a good clip to get a good look at Duke's base defense. So they basically run a 4-2-5 nickel. So that fifth DB is just a nickel back. I don't want to spend too much time on their personnel because I foresee it changing. They had a couple of guys that they lost last year. Their middle linebacker, Shaka Hayward, he led the team in tackles. He's gone. Darius Joyner, he was a safety. He made a lot of plays. He's gone. And then they brought in a couple of transfers. So they brought in a guy from Miami, Al Blades Jr., 6-year guy, ton of experience, has been in college football for a while, just never really seemed to, stay healthy at Miami. And then another guy that couldn't really stay healthy is Miles Jones, and he's actually a 7th-year guy, so he was in the 2017 recruiting class. Absolutely crazy. I think he's going to turn 25 during the football season. But those guys will give him a little bit of a talent floor. I think Duke really struggles to recruit, it being an academic institution, and Al Blades was a 4-star guy. Miles Jones was a consensus 3-star, so kind of raises their floor a little bit, talent level. And I don't know what they're going to run as far as personnel groupings with those guys, but I think what they're going to aim to do is get those guys on the field at some capacity. So I don't want to spend too much time saying this guy's going to play nickel and this guy's going to play boundary corner. I think that their goal is just going to be to get those guys on the field and have them make some sort of impact some kind of way. But the one area that Duke returns a lot is their defensive line, and it's really the strength of their defense. So I'm going to show you this clip, and the interior of their defensive line, there's a guy by the name of Dwayne Carter, and he has legitimate NFL upside. I think that he'll be drafted in April, and led the team in sacks last year from an interior line position. He does get kicked out to the edge a little bit, especially when you see Duke go to some odd man fronts. He'll play a little bit of end just to rush the passer, but he's disruptive. He's a powerful dude. He's big, so he's definitely gonna provide the interior of Clemson's line a challenge first week. They got a couple of ends that were pretty good. Duke started a freshman last year, Vincent Anthony. He's a solid player. I don't think he's anything, special, but I think he'll take a step at being a second year in college football. And then opposite of him, they have a guy by the name of R.J. Oben, and he's pretty good. He's got some juice to him. I think he's pretty explosive, pretty long guy. I think he's kind of a liability in the run game at times, but as far as rushing the passer, I think he's pretty solid. So he'll give a good test to Tristan Lee out there at left tackle there first week. But I just want to go through this play. So this is their game against Virginia. If you see Virginia's kind of spreading them out, going 4 wide, 1 running back in the backfield, no tight ends, just trying to space out that nickel defense a little bit. And what they're going to do is call a QB draw and just get those linebackers caught downfield a little bit. The key to really breaking this Duke's defense is really getting blockers downfield. They don't have a lot of size outside of their defensive line, and really their linebackers aren't overly big, and their secondary is really not big. So I think the key for Clemson going into this game is to be getting these linemen downfield and force these skinny guys to tackle as much as you can. If I stop it right here, you see that lineman kind of sitting in the lap of the quarterback? Well, that's Dwayne Carter. He does that a lot on film. He's a powerful, disruptive guy, and if you're not playing with proper pad level, proper technique, he's gonna put you in the lap of your quarterback, and you see it a lot. But Brandon Armstrong, he's a mobile guy. He takes advantage of it, and really, on a 3rd and 3, it's kind of surprised to see these linebackers kind of play off as much as they are. But it's kind of the philosophy of the Duke defense. I don't think that they really, go for a lot of tackles in the backfield. They don't go for a lot of tackles for loss or sacks. What they want to do is just play sound, fundamental defense. Keep everything in front of them and just rally to the ball. I think that they are pretty athletic. They do have some good team speed in the secondary. They just don't have the size. But what their goal is going to be is to kind of keep everyone deep. Don't get beat over the top. Keep everything in front of you and just rally to the ball. And that's what you see here. Even on a 3rd and 3, these linebackers are playing, about 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. So they're not really looking to get tackles for loss or anything. And they ask their linebackers to cover a lot. You'll see them in some dime packages as well. but really not sub off a linebacker. They'll ask their weak side linebacker just to cover either a tight end or anybody like that. So it's just a good look at their base defense. I think Clemson's going to run looks similar to this, especially trying to spread them out and just take advantage of opportunities like this. I think Cade has a good advantage with his legs in this game, especially running a quarterback. You get an extra blocker downfield with the running back, so definitely think we'll see it a lot. Um, and Virginia executed this pretty well. Good third down conversion. All right, so this is Duke in their odd man front. They play a lot of Okie, so you got a nose tackle, you got 2 5 techs to the outside. What they do a lot with this is they play like almost the 3-2-6 is what I would call it. So just a dime defense. You got 6 DBs on the field. They very rarely play with one high safety. So they'll play cover two, they'll play cover three, but they very rarely play single high. So what they're going to do here in order to get some pressure is they're going to send this safety off the edge. Have them highlighted here, and it's a pretty lazy rep if I say so. It doesn't really ever look like he's convinced he's going to get to the quarterback. Running back picks it up pretty easily, and Hartman just throws a nice little pass here. So this is one thing that I'd like to see with Clemson is, just challenge these cornerbacks. So that number 0 is his name's Chandler Rivers. He was a freshman last year, so he'll be a true sophomore going into this year. So I expect him to make a step as well, being a second-year guy. But he's not, overly big. He's not overly great. He's good. He's fine, but he's definitely not a lockdown corner, I would say. So whenever you get these kind of one-on-one looks to the outside, you just want to take advantage of it. And we want to see Clemson receivers take advantage of plays like this, right? We miss the days where we could throw up a contested ball and know our receivers are coming down with it, and this doesn't have to be a crazy good throw. You just got to put it in position for our guys to make plays. So I think we'll see a lot of that. I think that, Duke knows that they're going to have to, kind of play coverage by committee with us. I don't think they're going to stick their guys on islands and ask them to play man. They didn't do it a lot last year. Maybe they feel really good about these transfers and they can play some man on the outside, with Al Blades and Miles Jones, but we'll see. I didn't see it much last year. They tend to play a lot of zone. They tend to play a lot of, like I said, cover 2, cover 3 with safety help over the top. But this is what it looks like. This is their 3-man defense, and they tend to get a lot of pressure with their safeties and nickel back and corners. Last year, Darius Joyner, he had 8 tackles for loss and 4 sacks, and that was one of the leaders on the team. So they don't ask their ends to just get pressure by themselves. They like to fabricate a pass rush from their defensive backs, particularly the safeties and the nickel. So I foresee that happening a lot this year. All right, so this is a good example of how Duke likes to get pressure on the quarterback. A lot of times when they're in 4-man fronts, they won't really send big numbers. They'll usually just rely on their guys up front to go to work. But when they're in these 3-man fronts, which is what they're in here, they like to walk a lot of guys up to the line of scrimmage. They'll walk their linebackers up. They'll walk the safeties up. They'll walk the nickel up and just try and muddy the look as much as possible. And it's one thing, that we've talked about this preseason, particularly with Clemson's offensive line, is that they're actually going to be adjusting the protection and doing the protection calls at the line of scrimmage. It's not going to be the responsibility of Cade's this year, which I find interesting. So this is going to be something that Putnam, Parks, Tate, all those guys are going to have to communicate. Parks and Putnam have played side by side for a few years now, and Tate's got some experience working next to Putnam. So I expect them to communicate well. I expect them to expect this, look from Duke. I think that Duke's going to pressure Clemson early. Last time we saw Cade on a football field in a live game situation, the pressure kind of got to him, and the offensive line for that matter. The offensive line didn't handle that pressure very well. So I expect Duke to do it. But this is how they do it. You only got one guy with his hand in the dirt. Everyone's just kind of walked up there and looks like they're going to rush. A lot of times they do this and they bluff. They'll just send the 3 linemen. But then you got times like this where they'll actually send a safety, which is what they do here. That safety on the boundary side is going to leak right through. Running back's not going to pick him up, and he's got a free run at the quarterback. Now, that's Darius Joyner who's making that play. He's gone. He's not here this year, but you don't really need a skilled pass rusher to execute that play, right? You just kind of need that, guy to run free and be in good pursuit of the quarterback. That can be anybody. That could be a linebacker. That could be their DB. It could come from anywhere too as well. So it's something we'll see. I expect them to try and get pressure this way. A lot of times when they're in their 4-man fronts, they won't send a bunch of numbers when they're in 4-man fronts. They typically only do it when they're in 3-man, just to kind of confuse in that Okie front. They'll walk up into the B gaps and stuff like that. But it's something I expect. It's something I saw on film. This was a good rep by them. Big situation, big play, and get Boston College turnover on downs. But just a really poor job by the running back on Boston College, not picking up that blitzer. And it's one thing that I've always thought Moffa was really good at. I always thought Moffa was a little bit ahead of Shipley in his pass protection. So I know Shipley's gotten a lot better at it. He's not bad at it by any means. I just always thought Moffa was just a little bit better in pass pro. So it's something I'm looking for this year. Something I'm looking for in this first game. How do the running backs help protect Cade? If you get some pressures like this, and Garrett Riley doesn't like the look or he doesn't think we have the numbers, we also have the option in this offense to tag one of these guys out wide and just get something to get the ball out quick. Just something like a quick screen pass or swing the running back out, or just get kind of something that Cade doesn't really have to decipher the blitz. He can just kind of one read, get the ball out of his hands, and hopefully get the guy out in space. So we'll see. It's definitely something that I think Duke is going to implement. Even though they do have a new defensive coordinator, he worked with Elko before at A&M, so I expect it still to look a lot like Elko's defense. I don't expect it to change schematically a lot, but this is a big part of their scheme. This is something that they definitely implement, and something with a new quarterback and breaking in a new offense. Duke's definitely going to try and pressure Clemson. I expect it early and often on Monday. All right, so I want to go over one of the glaring weaknesses of the Duke defense, and the stats kind of back me up on this, is that they were not a good red zone defense. So they had 41 red zone attempts that they defended, and teams got points 36 out of those 41 times. So 9 of those were field goals, 27 of those were touchdowns, which is not a good percentage to have. So a lot of times in these red zone situations, they just don't have the size to really defend in the red zone. Part of the size has nothing to do with it. I mean, I know a tight end is one who eventually catches his pass, but this is just horrible coverage with a tight end, and you see how wide open he is. You can't see the route from the broadcast, but look when he catches this ball, how wide open he is. I mean, there's no one even anywhere near him. And all this is a couple shallow crossing routes. And if you watched our passing preview with Garrett Riley, that's what he loves. He loves to run these shallow crossing routes. And he's particularly a good red zone play design guy. So I foresee this being a problem for Duke's defense against Clemson. I think Clemson's got a bunch of guys that I like in the red zone, running or catching the ball. But this is just bad defense. They're really a liability in coverage whenever I have to defend a short field and some bigger guys. But I'll go through another clip with you, the same thing that I saw, and I just think Clemson will easily be able to take advantage of this, and especially if this is something that hasn't been cleaned up since last year. All right, so I want to go through this clip as well, just to kind of emphasize just how big of an advantage I think Clemson has in this aspect on Duke's defense. Like they just were really not good at this, and I could have more clips that show you this, but this is the same look. They're on the 10-yard line. All they're going to do is leak a tight end out of the formation. He's going to do a little shallow crossing route, and there's no one. I mean, there's no one anywhere near him. That's such an easy play for an offense. So I'm almost willing to bet, I've seen this so many times on film, that Clemson will score a touchdown with a shallow crossing route with a tight end in the red zone. I know that sounds oddly specific, but it's just something that showed up on film a lot. And it's something that, I think Clemson's definitely going to take advantage of. I mean, if you go back, I want to show you where this defender actually ends up. So that red guy I have highlighted, I mean, look how far away he is, and we just broke the line of scrimmage. He has no chance of making that play. And then you got everyone else in man just, mirroring their guy. So that whole side of the field just wide open. I think that this is a good, sign of why they play a lot of zone coverage. It's because when you put them in man, they are just not good. And I hate to be so blunt about it, but I mean, this is a huge advantage for Clemson. And I think that's something that we're definitely going to see, and I think something that they're definitely going to take advantage of, because it showed up so much last year that if they haven't cleaned this up or found a new way to defend the red zone, that it's going to be a long night for Duke in these situations. Film last year, I think Clemson has a pretty good chance to put up some points on Duke on Monday night. I just want to provide some context to Duke's defense and some of the numbers who I think are a little bit inflated, and that's that Duke was the number 2 team in the country last year in terms of turnover margin. Now, part of that is their offense not turning the ball over, which kudos to them. But some of that's just dumb luck. I mean, you can't really practice turnovers. You can't bank on getting turnovers. And their turnover margin was plus 16 last year, which is incredible. So I think that when you look at their record of 9-4, and they won 9 games in year one under Elko. Well, I think that could very easily be 7-6 wins if that turnover margin just flipped a little bit in a few games. Not to diminish what they accomplished, because I think winning 9 games at a place like Duke is just an incredible coaching job. But I do think that you kind of see that trend go the other way this year, where maybe if they got a bunch of the fumble recoveries last year, maybe they don't recover as much. Maybe they throw a couple more interceptions, and winning at the margins like that could make a big difference in a season. And there's an advanced stat metric that I respect called Beta Rank, and they use the same information that they send to the College Football Playoff Committee. And just to contextualize their defense, they rank them as the 54th best defense in the country, which is not great. So I do think that their defense numbers are a little inflated. If you look at their pass defense, they didn't really field a good pass defense last year. Rushing defense is the strength of their defense, but it doesn't really scare me. I think Clemson will be able to get a push on these guys, especially through 3-4 quarters of football. Duke doesn't have waves of guys that they can just rotate in and compete on Clemson's level for 4 quarters. So even if Clemson was to get off to a slow start, I think eventually they pull away, and they win comfortably. The spread right now is 13. If I had to pick right now, I would pick Clemson to cover that spread. But I also don't think that, when you look at Garrett Riley's scheme, that it's that complicated to where I'm expecting a slow start. Now, I realize that it's Cade's second start. I realize it's a completely new offensive scheme, and you have to go through your procedures of Garrett Riley calling the play and all that. But when you look back to the spring and them talking about, after 2 weeks, he brought us to the side and 85% of the offense was already implemented. Well, they've just been building off that. And I think that's what you see this season is you'll see a lot of the basic concepts on Monday, and you'll see a lot of the new offense, but they're just going to continually add wrinkles to this offense, and they're going to just continually add plays and, just little things off of what they've already implemented to build on it and to keep, defensive coordinators on their toes. But I think the basic concepts can win against Duke. I don't think that Clemson needs to open up their playbook, or they will at all. I think with that game week 4, Clemson's going to hold a little bit back. But that's not to say that Clemson doesn't want to make a statement on Monday night. And I think if Dabo has a chance to win by 3-4 touchdowns even, I think he takes full advantage of that. I think that he's a little bit tired of this narrative of Clemson, and he wants to make a statement in a standalone game. So I think Clemson fans should be excited for Monday night. I expect the offense to put up numbers. Like I said, if Clemson's able to move the ball down the field and get the ball in the red zone, I like their chances of getting points more often than not. And if you're asking Duke to match points with Clemson, well, I just don't think they're going to be able to do that, especially not through 4 quarters. So thank you for watching this video. We're going to be doing these throughout the season, breaking down our season opponents every week. So if you guys would like and subscribe to the video, make sure to follow along. I'll see you guys next time.